Professor BlackOps, Cybersecurity for the people. Let's get it. What are the Active Directory security checks? So we're gonna go over some few STIG checks. I have a lot of them actually in the description. So if you want to see them, also you can hit me on email and I'll send them to you. ProfessorBlackOps@gmail.com. Just go to my community tab. It's in there. So let's walk through a few of these and see what's going on. Of course, I think Active Directory obviously is. If you're in a Microsoft, that is the de facto standard for security, permissions, and passwords. So what is Active Directory? Active Directory database is a directory containing information about Active Directory objects in the domain. Common types of objects include users, computers, application printers, shared folders. Some objects can contain other objects in an AD described as hierarchical. In particular, organization often simplifies administration by organizing AD objects into organization units and streamline security by putting users into groups. These OUs and groups themselves are objects stored in the directory. Right, so there's a ton of videos out there talking about Active Directory, getting started, and beginner. We're just talking about basically securing it and locking it down. That's what we're going to focus on today. So here is the on-prem network. Domain Active Directory sync. That's the picture of the Active Directory. 9 times out of 10, a lot of the major companies and big companies and Fed companies are actually syncing their Active Directory to Active Directory in the cloud, right? So that's sync. So with the public IP, that means it can be reached. So we need to have a VPN tunnel, SSL, and a bunch of things, certificates and everything to lock down that connection over the internet. So that's one of the things we're actually talking about. Also, everybody know I'm a STIG guy, so let's hit it. While the National Institute of Standards and Technology, NIST, reference guidelines across federal governments and Federal Information Management Act, which is FISMA, provides guidance for civilian agencies, the Department of Defense Systems. It adds another layer of requirements propagated by Defense Information System Agency. We call that DISA. The federal IT security pros within a DoD must comply with technical testing and hardening framework, known by the acronym of STIGs, or Security Technical Implementation Guidelines, or configuration standards for DoD. The STIG contain technical guidance to lock down information systems and software that might otherwise be vulnerable to a malicious attack. Right, so these are just checks, very detailed checks of what you need to put on Active Directory to lock it down. So in this checks, it's not a lot of them. It was 36 STIG checks, 5 was high, 27 were medium, and 4 were low. So let's just go over a few of those. V8535 is a high. Interconnection between DoD directory or different classification level must use a cross-domain solution that is approved by the Interclassification Trust. If a robust cross-domain solution is not used, then it could be permitted for unauthorized access. To support secure access between different classifications, the solution must meet discretionary access that are currently no DoD solutions. So when you do a cross domain classification, domain to domain, we just usually do SSL, put it in a VPN tunnel, or use private certificates to validate that connection. V8536, a control interface must have interconnection among DoD information between DoD and non-DoD systems of the network. So when you're in the private sector, you usually have your secure part of your network and your non-secure, right? Your flat network versus your protected zone, or where you have all your social security numbers, credit cards, SSN. That will be your DoD part, and the non-DoD will be the rest, printers and stuff you just have on your flat network. The configuration of AD trust relationship is one step used to allow users in one domain to access resources in another domain. Force a Kerberos square. When a trust is defined between DoD and a non-DoD organization, the security posture of the two organizations might be significantly different, and to maintain a less secure environment, the environment where may be compromised. The presence of AD trust might allow the DoD environment to be compromised. So when you go from a non-secure network to your secure network in your company, what does that connection look like? So you got to have the non-secure part at a certain level so your secure part can trust it. V 36431, membership to the enterprise admin group must be restricted to accounts used only to manage the Active Directory for us. The enterprise admin group is a highly privileged group. Personnel who are system administrators must log on the Active Directory system only using accounts with the level of authority necessary. We call that elevated privilege. So we have a privilege account to do our admin work, and we have regular account where we just do our regular work. Only system administrator accounts used exclusively to manage the Active Directory for us may be a member of the enterprise admin group. The separation of administrative responsibilities help mitigate the risk of privilege escalation resulting from potential thefts or attack. So the majority of work should be done using your regular account. So if you use your privilege account less, it will be more likely to be stolen or hijacked. Vulnerability 364035, delegation privileges account must be prohibited. Privileged accounts such as those belonging to any administrative group must not be trusted for delegation. Allowing privileged account to be trusted for delegation provides a means of privilege escalation from a compromised system. So let's talk about Active Directory in a zero trust network. So everybody knows the SolarWinds attack has happened. So we kept doing a post-mortem or investigation on that. Proof that the on-premise Active Directory still is an effective initial access vector. New evidence point to attackers using a well-established method to gain initial access the old-fashioned way through an on-premise Active Directory. The SolarWinds Active Campaign serves as a warning that on-premise identity resource will be increasingly used as a stepping stone for cloud environment. Defenders tend to focus on the most sophisticated techniques. So what happened is they actually stole their credentials on-prem Active Directory, and they sync all those credentials up in the cloud so you can use single sign-on. You won't have to have two passwords for on-prem and in the cloud. So when they hack their on-prem, right, they got the passwords for the Azure AWS Active Directory in the cloud. So here's some checks to block that. Do not allow users to grant consent to unmanaged application. Enable password hash synchronization if hybrid. Enable policies to block legacy authentication. Enable self-serve password reset. Ensure all users can complete multi-factor authentication for secure access. Require multi-factor authentication for administrative roles. Turn on your sign-in risk policy. Turn on your user risk policy. Limit administrative rights, and deploy Azure password protection on-prem to eliminate common passwords. So Azure has a super sophisticated password complexity policy. You can actually run that on-prem also, right? So you get the how many times you can reuse a password, how long you have to wait, complexity, reuse, and it has a common dictionary, so people can't use common words in their password. So they actually definitely recommend that. I looked at it, the price wasn't too bad. I'm actually going to set that up in the lab to see what actually that looks like. So enforce, that's what we're talking about, enforcing that. The Azure AD password protection protects detection and blocks known weak passwords and variants, also blocks additional weak terms that are specific to organization. On-premise deployment of that uses same global and custom banner password lists that are stored in Azure AD. Does the same check for on-prem as it does for AD in the cloud to change. Performing password changes and password resets event against on-prem domain controllers. So those are some of the benefits of using that service. So we're going to look back a little bit on the SolarWinds attack. So in 2017, CyberArk found something called the Golden SIM attack. It was coined because the Kerberos golden ticket attack, which you target of Active Directory, giving it tips, Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory. They said that attack could never happen because you couldn't get on prem to actually steal the Kerberos golden ticket. But of course, in 2020, as the SolarWinds were compromised, it was determined that the Microsoft 365 accounts had been compromised using the Golden SIM attack technique that they said in 2017 you would ever never be able to actually accomplish. So one of the other scary things about that is multi-factor MFA is an important security control which should be applied for most authentication requirements, mitigating that inherent weakness or password-based authentication. When used to redirect from the identity provider to authenticate, the provider will change the users with multi-factor authentication. Long point: when you steal the ticket out of SIML for the golden attack, you bypass MFA. So that actually made MFA useless. So that was the first time you could say MFA couldn't solve that problem because MFA is like the Swiss Army knife. If you have a problem, just throw MFA on there. So that was something quick. Once again, I'll put a lot of the STIG checks in the description. This is Professor Black Ops, cybersecurity for the people. Let's make STIG sexy.